Hello and welcome to Coffee and Christ. I'm your host, Sean Talent, and today we don't have Ben in the podcast studio, but we do have Nate Shane here. Go ahead and say hi.
What's up?
And today we are talking about building a theology of fitness, but before we get into it, we want to hear a little bit about Nate over here. So, Nate, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am a recent graduate from Southwestern Oklahoma State University, go Dogs, SWASU, and I am the youth minister at Emmanuel Baptist Church Weatherford as of a month ago, and that's been going really great. So a little bit about me, my testimony. I'm someone who grew up going to church and doing all the churchy things, went to all the church camps. Whenever I was a little kid, they were like, pray this prayer. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I prayed a prayer and thought I was saved, but I didn't know anything about what it meant and lived life going to church. Again, went to all those church camps. And I remember whenever I went into high school, I went to this camp called Super Summer. It's a leadership camp. And I remember hearing one of my family group members, they put you in little family groups to quickly explain it. It's kind of like you meet random people in your grade and you all hang out for the week. And one of those people was sharing their testimony and they were like, yeah, I went to Super Summer last year, realized that I've been doing the church thing and been doing the motions, but I never made a decision to have a relationship with Christ. And I was like, ooh, that's convicting, but that's not me, right? And I remember I ignored it. Next year goes on and I hear it from a completely different person, the same story. It's wild. It's kind of how God works, I guess. It does all those things and puts all those motions in your life. And so I was like, all right, this is really convicting. I still didn't do anything about it at the camp, but I knew I was like, I got to get saved. I got to make a decision. But I was putting it off because I was scared, because I was like, no, everyone's going to think I'm weird. And so I remember going to Falls Creek and there's this guy, his name's Ed Newton's from Texas. He's a great, great pastor. He was talking and he said guys, seriously think about this. If you were to die right now, and it's a typical kind of turn or burn statement, but he's like, if you were to die right now, would you go to heaven or would you go to hell? And I genuinely hesitated and didn't know the answer to that. And I was like, I felt huge conviction in my life. I was like, all right, I got to make a decision right now. I think this is the Lord telling me hey, wake up. You may be going to church, but you don't have a relationship with me. You're just moving through the motions. So that next night, not the night of, imagine the rapture happens, right? That's it. I'm gone. No, the next night, I was like, I got to get saved. And so I talked to my youth minister, dedicated my life to the Lord that night. And then ever since then, I want to say it was sunshine and rainbows, but that was 2019. And so the next year, I'm a band kid. And so I was a drum major for our high school marching band. And we went into marching season. And so I kind of ignored church in a way. I just didn't go because I was so used busyness as an excuse. And so even though I was saved and had the Spirit leading me, I felt convicted about that I still chose a sinful pattern in my life of just not going to church over going to church. And I remember COVID happened that year. It was my senior year of high school. And it's I had my identity in everything but God at that point. I had really not gone to church too much. I was going occasionally. And I was putting my identity in finding a relationship with someone or having the best conducting style as a drum major, or thinking oh, I got to start weightlifting now. And we're going to talk about that during our episode. But I had such a physical identity and none of it was in Christ at that point in time. And so everything got stripped away from me at COVID. I didn't get prom. I didn't get band has a band banquet and the drum majors were a host for that. I really wanted to do that. And all of it was gone. So I feel that was the Lord for me, giving me a wake up call and saying dude, turn to me. Your attention is so scattered. It needs to be on me. So whenever the summer was over, I got to my first year at Southwestern. And I remember my friend was like, hey, let's check out BCM. I was like, all right. So I went to BCM and was immediately surrounded by all these super good Christ-like believers. And I was like, oh, is this what life is about? Community with Christians? And so I was finally getting pushed to go to church on my own because, I'm in college. That's your choice now.
Oh, yeah.
It's seriously your choice.
Your parents aren't there to drag you.
Yeah, I wasn't dragged to church. And then my friends are like, are you reading your Bible all the time? And I was like, no. And they're like, why? And I was like, I don't know. I guess I just didn't want to. And they started pushing me to have this desire for discipleship, this desire to study theology and learn what that is. And I didn't, there were so many terms I learned. I was like, bro, these are all new. From there, the Lord really put this call in my life to pursue him. And I like almost every night, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, something else was happening, all with believers. And so like the Lord used that time to really turn me to him. Felt my call to ministry my freshman year, started pursuing like exegetical, like study of the word, and then learning how to preach through that. And then started pulpit filling across Western Oklahoma, which was super scary and terrifying as a sophomore. I was like 19, this pulpit filling in front of like congregations of like 30 and 40. And I was like, dude.
Man.
So it was crazy. And so like the Lord really turned my life around, and still like, you know, as I share, like I say 2-minute testimony, and it's like 5 minutes at this point already. But like, as I share, you know, I wish that I could say, actually, no, I wouldn't say I wish I could say this, because I know that all these things happen for a reason. Like even getting into college, like those problems that were in my life before I got saved, like continued into my life when I got saved. So like all those bodily image problems still continued. And I still like had that sinful pattern. Like, yes, you got the Spirit guiding you, and now you're like bought by the blood of Christ, which means like you don't have to worry about that anymore. But you still like, I feel like Satan kind of still like plants those seeds in your life. Yeah. And you still have like those little things and like those little temptations and doubts that you look to. And so like, you know, as we go into this episode about the theology of fitness, and like, I'm going to talk a little bit about how fitness changed my life, but it's crazy to see like how the Lord shifted my mindset over time to like overcome all those problems. So that's a little bit about my testimony. Hopefully you got to know a little more about me in that short span of time.
Yeah, for sure. That's the most important story each one of us Christians have, right? Is how we came to Christ. So thank you for sharing that, Nate. Before we get more into it, we want to thank Jason Baker, the sponsor for today's video. He's with Downtown Realty Group. And if you're in the market to buy or list a house and you want to support a fellow brother in the faith, go ahead and call him up at 405-313-6700. Again, that's 405-313-6700. So this is Coffee and Christ. So obviously we should have coffee in front of us. Me and Ben oftentimes fail at that. But today, me and Nate in the studio, we have empty coffee cups in front of us. They're not full of anything. But Nate, do you want to tell them about what we got? We got the same thing.
Let's see. We got a medium banana split with milk or something like that. I think I got the caffeinated version because I'm like immune to caffeine. This guy got decaf because it's like literally 7 p.m. right now as we're recording. I got to drive back home, man. You know, I really was kind of intrigued by this whole banana split flavor. And I was like, you know, maybe this is going to be pretty good. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little disappointed. Because I didn't get enough banana. I got a little bit of chocolate in there. I got a little bit of that milk flavor. But, man, I'm really seeking, you know, if you're going to advertise your drink as a banana split,
it should have banana
split. Yes. I want a banana. I got some of it. I thought it's pretty good. I'm going to give it out of 10. I'll give it a 6.
That's good. That's what I'd give probably a 6. It was above average, but it didn't really impress me that much. Again, like Nate said, the banana flavor was not there. I got the decaf version because I'm a wimp when it comes to caffeine. I'm not immune to it by any means. And guys, I know like me and Ben talked about this last time, but we need to get Viridian to sponsor us. Okay. We are always drinking Viridian coffee, even if it was just like we get a coffee on the house, you know, whenever we record and talk about them. We need to get that set up, people. So email them. Yeah. Our thousands of listeners. That's a joke, guys. We don't have thousands of listeners yet.
Look, I would go back to Viridian, even though I just gave their coffee a 6 out of 10. Okay, that was a first time experience. Like, I would go back. Yeah.
So if you know the manager of Viridian, email him this episode, and so that he can hear about how they should sponsor us
and how they should add more banana.
Yeah. No, we need to. We have some suggestions for them on coffee, but we also. We want to thank Sharon Baptist Church for letting us use this room. This is an old Sunday school room that we converted into a studio. We put sound panels up. Anyways, if y'all are ever in the area, in the Chickasha area, and you need a church to visit or call home, we are on the northeast side of Chickasha, and you could just Google us and you'll find us. And this is the church that I serve at. Every now and then you'll see me in the pulpit. Ben, speaking on Ben's behalf, he would probably tell you to find a different church that morning if I'm in the pulpit, jokingly.
No way.
No, jokingly. Yeah. So if you want to see this studio, this amazing studio we record in, just find me at church on a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night, and I'll show you the room. It's actually locked, so if you try to get in here without me, you won't get very far. But so Nate, we've got through all our intro stuff. Now we're going to be talking about developing a theology of fitness, right? Because you can have a theology, you can understand all these things in life and how they relate to God, right? Because God's the creator of all things. So this means that he created the fitness industry, right?
He did.
So we're going to talk about kind of how we should view the fitness industry, how we think about these things from a biblical perspective, and how we can see the gospel in it even, I would say. Like, because you can see the gospel in everything. You can see God in everything. So do you want to read our first scripture, or would you like me to?
I would love to read our first scripture. So it's 1 Timothy 4:8, and it says in the ESV version, "For while bodily training is of some value, godliness is of value in every way, as it holds promise for the present life and also for the life to come." So
thinking about this verse and how it relates to Paul's talking about bodily training. So this is the area that weightlifting, that fitness industry that it falls into, is bodily training. So he says it is of little value. Now, Nate, does that mean that we shouldn't really worry about physical training because it's not of very much value?
I think it's kind of the opposite. I think he's saying that this is valuable, but just in comparison to training for godliness, it is of little value. But Paul is giving some value to training bodily. And I think that's important. I think we should note that.
I agree with you. I think that training is something that is immensely valuable. We talked about this before we started recording, how why we do these things is to be able to play with our kids, our grandkids, right? Yeah. So that we can protect our families, right? So that we can live long and healthy lives, because we want to take care of this body that God has given us, right? So yeah, it's not of no value. It's just like you said, it's in comparison to godly training, it's of little value, right? Yeah,
exactly.
So it is immensely valuable. We should pour time and energy into this act of training up our bodies. I think that's a good segue starting into this. I want to start us getting into how this fitness of bonding with other men, because we're both guys, and this is a predominantly what we're talking about, kind of more the weightlifting side of things. Now there's the CrossFit, the spin classes, yoga. Those are more biased towards women, I would say. But what we're talking about here is mostly the weightlifting, right? This still falls into all the fitness still falls into the category of bodily training, right? So that it includes women, but we want to talk about kind of how this fitness, how we can build relationship with other men. So do you think you want to start us on that?
Yeah, I think when it comes to men in the gym and men training together, whether it's running together and stuff like that, right? I think we often as men, we enjoy the thought of the suffering, if that makes any sense. Yeah. When we go to the gym, we're in there and we're grunting around and we're throwing weight and we're oh yeah, manly, but I think it's interesting how we bond through that together. Even today, we hit the weights right before we got here, and we're sitting there and we're pushing the rep, and we're feel that pain,
yes,
it's fun. we enjoy doing that, and it kind of creates this community where we can kind of, for lack of a better word, share in our suffering of lifting and kind of tearing our muscle fibers down so they can rebuild back. I think that's pretty fun. I think with that, though, there's this difference between community and vanity, right? Because you can have there's kind of two sides of the coin when it comes to weightlifting, especially for men. I think it really plagues. I think it plagues everybody. That's probably a better way to say it. I think men are probably more vocal about it, but I think it plagues everybody. Is this idea of what are we lifting for? Is it for vanity? Or is it for ourselves, right? And man, this is such an important thing to get in your mind when you start this journey. I started weightlifting, we'll say about 4 years ago. When I started college is whenever I started weightlifting. A little bit about me. I was roughly 300 pounds when I started college. I was a big boy, didn't play sports. So I was just 300 pounds of fat, essentially, a little bit of muscle on there,
Yeah.
And as I started that journey, I've lost roughly 70 pounds or so over the past 4 years. Great, right? Super fun. But when I started, I did it with this kind of sinful intent of I'm doing this to get a relationship, or I'm doing this to win favor with people. And I had this false view that how you look shapes your relationship with people. And that's just not true.
Yeah.
It's not. It's something that's sinful in nature. It's planted in our heads. I think, we got to be careful how we treat that. We got to be careful how we treat vanity.
Yes. Yeah. So, I think that men and women kind of, they take the vanity routes differently, right? So with men, it's more like a showing off kind of thing. I think for them, like more often than not. And with women, it's vanity in the sense of like, they don't look the way they want to, kind of almost like they're not like skinny enough. Like, I think that's what a lot of women struggle with on the side of and that's still vanity too.
Yeah.
Right?
And it is a vanity thing.
It's still like making your body an idol, right? You're in a sense worshiping your body. Kind of going back just a little bit, I want to talk about how in the bonding of men, how like, because men and women, they bias towards bonding in different ways, right? So women, it's more the like talking and conversing and getting to know each other kind of through that sense. Whereas men, they're more biased towards bonding through, like we talked about, like suffering, which is exactly what weightlifting is, right? Or going on adventures. Like that's another thing that's like really big on like men bonding. Like I think, I don't know how much I've talked about this on the podcast, but me and my buddy Cash, I've had Cash on the podcast. That episode probably isn't going to stay up much longer because it's not very good. Anyways, we love Cash. Me and Cash, we went on a trip to Atlanta for the G3 National Conference. And that trip was an adventure. We went through some crazy things, crazy highs, and then like lows of like when we pulled up to our hotel in Atlanta, like there were two guys smoking weed and there was an armed security guard out front. And we were like, This is not up to a good start. And then there was a whole story of us trying to get food, and I won't get into it because we don't have the time to talk about it. But like all that to say, like me and Cash, as much as we wanted to kill each other after that trip, just being real with you, we wanted to kill each other after that trip. We really bonded through that, right? Because it was adventure.
Yeah.
And that's how men like to bond. It's through like adventure and like suffering together, right? There was plenty of suffering together in that trip where we got on each other's nerves, or where we were both just like, this is not fun at all, And so I wanted to talk about that real briefly, how this really biases men to how they bond. And like you can tell, like even Lydia has said things about like how it's like the gym bro mentality kind of thing, where like it's the gym guys like building community together.
It's
right?
different.
Yeah. And this isn't to say that women can't do the same thing, or they can't be part of like, a gym bro community. That's kind of a oddball thing, I guess. You don't see that a lot.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So, like what was the thing that happened today with the guy?
Yeah. So we're over. So we worked out at the Y. I'll give that gym I'll give it a 5 out of 10 on the rating. It had what you needed. Pretty small space, no AC in there, which is, it's fine. Some people don't like, or some people like it, some people don't like it. I prefer at least a few more fans.
Yeah.
That's off topic, but important. Okay.
Yes.
So we're in there and like, there's probably 3 other dudes in there. 3 or 4.
Not many.
Not too many in there. Pretty good hour to work out. But there's this like really big guy. Yeah. And we're about to go hit overhead tricep extensions.
Yes.
And I guess we didn't realize like he was still using the machine, but this dude looks intimidating.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a big guy. He's bigger than me. Yeah. I'm a pretty big guy. And so I'm like kind of, there's also this other side of like the gym. We got to hit this real quick too. Like the like kind of admiration of like others for like the hard work they put in. Like I look at this dude and I'm like, dude, he's been hitting it for a long time. You can just tell. And so like, there's like the admiration, but then there's also like the kind of fear factor a little bit. So I'm like, dude, this guy's like, he's kind of scary.
If he wanted to beat me up,
it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, sir. Like, I didn't mean to like take your machine, but like he's up there and he's like, oh, nah, man, you can use this. Like, you're good. And like we get into, he's like kind of facing us in our sets, and we're kind of facing him a little bit. And he's like, I promise I'm not looking at you guys. Like, he's like such like a teddy bear on the inside,
you
know?
Oh yeah.
And I love that like community where like all of us are there for a reason, which is to get better. Like, and to destroy our bodies essentially and just be better every time. Right. And I think like that's a understood given between everybody in the gym, no matter your size, no matter who you are, no matter your age. And that makes it really unique.
Yeah. There's a respect.
And it creates that community, right? With like, so, this dude has probably been lifting way longer than, I mean, I don't know. He's probably in his 30s or something like that. So he's probably been lifting for a decade longer than we have. Right. Unless he just started recently and he's just got crazy genetics, but like,
or he's hopping on.
Yeah, it could be hopping on there. Yeah. Trend. But like, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Trenbolone sandwich.
Yeah. Trenbolone sandwich.
Anyways,
perfect.
Yes.
So all that to say, like, the gym creates a given community. I'll give another example. So back for a long time, I worked out at just the Swassee Wellness Center, and it's really funny how, like, no matter what time of the day you work out, I feel like you see the same people. It's like somehow, like, we all chose, like, all of us that work out collectively at like 8 p.m. Somehow we all chose one day to work out at like 2 p.m. because I see the same guys, and they're not there all day. It's not that deep, you know. Like, but you know, there's this understood community over time of like us watching each other get better. That's just so unique.
Yeah,
and
you
I
don't see
can go
it
in
really
there
anywhere else.
Yeah, you really don't. I mean, it's so interesting how it works like that. But I remember, like, so I was bench pressing one day, and I love that you can ask anybody to spot.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. It really, and there's no fear factor with that. You walk up to a dude and, hey, can you spot me real quick? Like, yeah, bro. And then like they'll run you down. Like, what do you want me to do for your spot? Like, they're like, do you want like me to help you? Do you want me to just sit there and watch? Like, what's your like we all know. We all know like the signs and stuff like that. And it's so cool. But like I was going for a 225 max actually. Actually, I wasn't going for 225 that day. I wanted to rep 215 and see where I was at. And this guy looked at me. He's a huge guy. He said, "You're doing 225 today." Like he was hyping me up. Yeah. I've never met this man in my life. And he's ready to hype me up. He's a big dude. He like, when I tell you for liftoff, like, so on bench press, if you don't know how this works, like, sometimes if you're like really exhausted with your chest, someone will help you lift the bar up off of there so that you have more energy for your reps to really destroy yourself. This guy practically picked up 225 for me. I didn't do anything with that bar. So that's how you know he's pretty strong. And like, I didn't end up hitting 225, but he was like right there with me. He was hyping me up. And I love that like the gym creates that kind of community. Yeah. It's just it's unique. It's awesome. And it's a great opportunity with community to share Christ, I think.
So I want to go off that, but before that, I want to share another experience of mine that I had in the gym. I was doing like powerlifting style training, so I was doing like 5 sets of 5, I think it was that, with 185, and this was like my third or fourth set, and I had a belt on because I was also doing bent over rows, and I needed that to brace myself and so I could do more weight with that. Anyways, I was doing that and I got 185 and I got on like my second or third rep and I got stalled, you know? Yeah. And I was like, uh-oh. And so I dropped it and I went to roll it onto my belly, like to my hips so that I could sit up with it and then pick it up. But my belt was there. So I was like, oh, this is stuck. And so I like looked over on my left and right and I was like, help. And like the guy's like, I actually didn't even say help. They just saw me and they were like, oh, so they ran right over and picked it up. Like, no questions asked. Just like, they didn't make fun of me or anything.
No judgment. They're just right there for you. They get it. They understand the grind.
Yes. And it's such an encouraging thing to see stuff like that too, you know, to know that like, they're not looking down on me because I didn't get 185.
And you know what? Like, let this be the quick side tangent. Let this be an encouragement. Like, if you're scared of the gym, nobody in that room is ever going to judge you. Yeah. Unless you're doing it really wrong. I'm just kidding. But like,
they may come over and give you some tips.
They may give you some tips. They're not going to make fun of you for it. Like, I look at newer lifters and I'm like, I remember. I remember when I was there and I love it because I'm like, bring them on. Come on. Like, I love it. It's such a good community. You're never going to regret starting a lifting journey, even if you go twice a week. Yeah. Like, it's just so edifying.
That's actually what I don't even know who it is, but that's what's recommended for you is 2 times a week, full body training. Yeah. So even if you just do that, like, you don't even have to like in your first stages of training, you don't have to train that hard and you'll see results. You'll see muscle getting put on. Right. But I want to kind of transition here to like sharing the gospel, right. And how we can like focus and hone in on these things. So this is something that I kind of like am trying to think through currently, in that like, I'm studying to become a certified personal trainer, and in that, like, you work one-on-one with people a lot, right? You can do group classes and stuff too, but a lot of it is working one-on-one with people that you don't really know, and so obviously you're going to get to know these people because the people that stick around, you may train them for years, you know. And so this is something I've been trying to think through, is like, how can we practically apply and share the gospel? And I think if we build these relationships with people, it just comes up naturally. Like, at least for me, like, I'm not very good about being super intentional about bringing the gospel into conversations, but I do believe that, you know, the things of God and like theology and like these kinds of things are typically on my mind so much that it just kind of naturally comes up. And that's not an excuse to like that, for me to not consciously be thinking of these things and how I can incorporate them into conversations. I'm not excusing myself for that at all. But I think if we build a relationship with that, like that with somebody, those things will naturally come up. But I've been trying to think about how you can like be intentional about those. Right.
Right.
And I think that trying to teach these people, because you're teaching them fitness. Right. And I think at the same time, teaching people fitness in relation to God. Right. So this theology of fitness that we're talking about currently, this is things that I've been trying to think through of how you can incorporate these things. And I think 1 Timothy 4:8 is just like that A1 verse.
Yeah.
Right.
It's perfect.
To like bring up to clients is like, how much spiritual training have you been doing? Because, the scriptures say 1 Timothy 4:8 says that it's of how much more value is it to train spiritually. I can't say that for some reason. Train spiritually versus training physically, bodily training. Because I'm with you. I see you like every week. We're bodily training, but like I want to make sure that if you're in Christ, that you're training yourself so much more spiritually because it's so much more valuable.
Good.
Or if they're not in Christ, they're like, oh, well, I don't really do that kind of stuff. Then I can be like, okay, I know exactly where they stand and I know what my next move is to intentionally share the gospel with them and show the gospel to them through our actions. I think that's something else that people don't focus in on very much either is not only sharing, but showing the gospel. Right.
Yeah.
Because if it should not only flow out of our mouths, but flow through our fingertips. It flows out through our hands into what we do and how we act with people and interact with people. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. What do you kind of think about that, Nate?
I think a lot about, so for me, it's different, right? So since I don't, I'm not going to be a personal trainer. That would have been cool to pursue in college, looking back, like if I could have changed my major so I'm a business management major. I loved doing that. It was great. Learned a lot about psychology. It's great for my ministry and managing things like, planning events really well. If I could go back though, I would definitely do like a PT kind of side of thing, like going towards like that goal of like physical therapy school. Cause I love that idea of like the community and the communication with someone and like helping them grow to where they need to be. But I think, from my perspective of lifting where I'm at, where I'm just like the average gym bro that just goes in there at this point, I look at like the relationships you do build because you see the same people there every time.
Yeah.
Usually if you go around the same time every day, like you're going to see the same people. So like when I go, I get off work at about 1:00 or so, and then I'll probably go to the gym at like 2. And I see the same guys in there every single day. At that point, it's like, do strike up a conversation, like talk about something, like how's your day going? And I think as you build those relationships, it's probably not going to happen immediately. You can't discount the power of God in that kind of situation. It could happen immediately. But I think if you like build up discipleship relationships, because I think a lot of like church is great. I love the building of the church, but I think a lot of what we miss nowadays as believers is like in-home discipleship or like going to get coffee with people or like just saying like, hey, like, let's go talk about life for a little while and just like doing life with people because disciples make disciples and that'll bring people in. That's kind of my philosophy with everything.
That's good.
So like, I think like, if you build those relationships with people, it can turn into gospel-centered conversations. It's just like with coworkers, like, man, like let's say you work a 9 to 5 in a cubicle, right? Like The Office style or whatever, like the TV show, you've got your people that you see every day, man. Let's say you're at this point in life, you're like 28 years old and you've got a kid who's 3, maybe, right? So they're just about to go to pre-K. And then your coworker is like 30 and they got a kid that's in 1st grade. You're like, hey, like, how about you come over and eat dinner sometime? Like I love, like, dude, sharing meals with people is a great way.
We do not
to share
do that
the gospel. I agree. I think, I've grown to love cooking for people. Like you can just ask Sean. He's probably heard a lot about that. Like I used to have, this past year, I had a freshman family group where like we had a group of freshmen and I was a senior and then my partner was a sophomore. And like we poured into these freshmen at SWASU, and like every week, like I tried to either cook for them or just like host a game night, and like we all came together, and it was great. It was a great way. I've never seen more growth happen in a group of people together.
That's so good.
Like sharing meals is important, right?
It is.
So I think to kind of hone back in on this topic of like how can we do this with lifting, right? Building those relationships with those people, and your average gym bros is important. Get to know them, like ask them how they're doing. Like. it's it's kind of scary, but also like if you keep practicing it, it's really not that scary. Because if we treat it the same way as like asking them to spot you, they're not going to judge you. I don't think there's a single human on the planet. Well, there might be a few, but like there's probably not a human that's going to like be angry at you for asking them if you want to hang out.
Yeah.
They might be a little weirded out. Well, like, well,
they may
strange,
even just be like, no, thank you. Like,
like they'll give you a no, thank you. You're like, thanks for the thought, but I'm good. But you might get the person that's like, sure, like I'd love to, like get to really know them on a like physical level. Cause I love this, right? People don't care what you know until they know you care.
Yes. And
so like pour into those lives, and it's not a malicious intent of pouring in, but you have to pour into them first, or else they're not really going to care what you know. It's like if you're going to like share the gospel with these people in the gym, like man, get to know them, and eventually, I firmly believe those conversations will pop up.
Oh yeah,
and I think that that perspective of lifting, like knowing the guys in there or the girls, and like for the women that listen, like just getting to know them on a personal level will absolutely open doors for sharing the gospel. I love, I know this guy, we met him at Super Summer last year, and he worked in the wellness center and he works at the desk. And I was like, hey man, like you should totally just like, I think he was doing it before I suggested it, but like, I was like, just read your Bible at the desk.
Yeah. Like
while you're in there and while people are working out, like they're going to see you doing it. And eventually someone's probably gonna be like, what are you reading? Be like, dang man, I'm reading from, I don't know, 1 Timothy 4:8 today. Like,
yeah,
that'd be crazy.
Perfect.
Yeah. Like, and they're like, well, what are you reading that for? And that's such a great opportunity to share. Right. And like, I think our actions and how we portray ourselves, and then even just like why we lift, should overflow our love for Christ.
Yes.
And I think that starts with being open to having conversations.
Yeah, and being intentional. Like, I think I'm going to talk about this real fast. And when I was in Sayre, there was this guy who was, I can't remember, he was from some country over in Europe. Right, you could tell by his accent, and he talked about like lifting in kilograms. He was like, I don't know how that transitions from kilograms to pounds, but like my max squat was this. And anyways, he was like, he came over, he saw I was doing hack squat, and I was going real hard that day in particular. And he's like, hey man, you're doing like real good work. You need to keep that up. You'll see some good results. And he's like, he's big. He's a big guy. Yeah. And I was like, dang dude, like you have any like tips for me? I think that question right there, at least when you see like bigger guys, like when you see somebody that's new, you may approach a conversation differently. But I think somebody that's like an experienced lifter, like I'm sure that they want, like if they see that you're like, you can do things better, I know from my experience, they want you to do better. If they want you to be more effective in your lifts, right? It's like, I think that's something that's an amazing way to open up a door for a conversation. Cause like I talked with him for, 15, 20 minutes, cause it was just me and him in the gym there that day. And, ever since then, he was only there like 2 more weeks, but every time I'd come in, he'd give a fist bump and we'd be like, hey, like, how you doing, man? And like just started that relationship. We didn't, in that particular instance, we didn't get to continue that. But I think that also plays into the iron sharpens iron. So like if we can have another believer with us, right? Yeah. Like that, man, going back to the whole, like how men bond. And then like, I think the main source of discipleship that we get is through imitation. Right. So you see how somebody is living their life and then you imitate that.
Dude, absolutely.
Right. And I think that that's such a big deal in like just doing life with people, right? Like you can go have the Bible studies all you want, but if you're not doing life with somebody, I say this cautiously, actually, I don't know that you're really truly discipling them. Like, I think you should be able to come alongside them and live life, do life together. Yeah. I think that's what God intended us to have community. That's why we have the church, right? Yeah. It's to do life together, to pray for one another, to help each other out. Right, when we need it. It's to have a community together. So I think that just plays into that. And the reference for iron sharpens iron is Proverbs 27:17, by the way. Even though Nate may think it's in the Psalms.
Yeah, that's tough. I said it was Psalms like 4 times.
Hey, they both start with P and they're right next to each other in the Bible. So
man,
it's okay.
Been a long day.
We get it. Been a long day. Let's see how we're doing on time here. Okay, we've got a few minutes to talk about steroids. This is a kind of a last second thing I actually added on while we were recording. I'll be honest with you guys, because I think that this is an interesting thing, and neither one of us have any prep as to what we think about these in relation to God, right, to the scriptures. But I kind of want to just get your knee jerk reactions. Like, what are your thoughts on steroids?
I think for what they do to you, no, like they're not a good idea. Now, like dude, they've been doing these for years. I don't know how long steroids have been around, but like, man, I think, our main steroid example is probably
50s.
Arnold.
I think the 50s, 60s ish was when steroids were first, D-ball was the one that was kind of the golden era of bodybuilding was whenever they were introduced. So
these guys do if you don't know what a steroid is, it's essentially, it's a performance enhancing drug that accelerates your body's ability to build muscles. Am I incorrect with that?
Yeah. And like in men women too, because testosterone is a muscle, it synthesizes proteins and turns it into muscle, right? So basically what it's doing is it's taking your androgen receptors and making them take in more testosterone. It's making you produce more testosterone. It's not making you produce more. It's putting more testosterone in you, right? And it's just playing on these hormones, right, to cause you to put on more muscle, to grow more, right? Because you have you already have steroids in your body, like steroid hormones in your body, right? You have that's IGF-1, testosterone, and I can't think of the other one. There's 3 though that are naturally. I think it's growth hormone. That's what it is.
Probably.
Yes, it's growth hormone. So those are the 3 that are found naturally in your body. And basically what all steroids are doing are trying to take those and multiply them in your body to make you put on an unnatural amount of muscle, essentially.
Right. I think so. And we said we have no kind of biblical base behind this. It's kind of just a fun discussion. I do think that if you're going to talk biblically about steroids, I don't think they glorify God. And here's why. Okay. Unless somehow we'll give devil's advocate here, and then we'll give my explanation. Yeah. I think that steroids have a sole vanity focus. I do not think there is any other reason why someone would want to do steroids other than to perform better in what they're doing or to look crazy.
Yeah. So I want to caveat this though, real quick.
Yeah.
So there is, something that I think is biblical and appropriate. Well, I don't know that it's specifically biblical, but I think it's appropriate, and you can glorify God in taking testosterone to keep your levels where they should be, right?
Yeah.
Because testosterone is what makes you a man. And so naturally as you get older, right, it declines. And so I think it'd be appropriate to supplement.
To either supplement or to do natural means through diet to get your testosterone back. I agree with that. That is a good caveat. I will say, if we're going to play devil's advocate here with steroids, you can say that if you took them with the idea of being in that community to be a missionary or something, I don't know. Let's say you specifically did steroids to know what it's like. And I almost can't even, as I'm thinking about the statement, saying it, I can't even advocate for it, because that's like saying, oh, I'm going to go to the bars and experience drinking and being drunk so that I can be a missionary to people that get drunk all the time. I would say that's probably not very good logic. You might be having some ulterior motives there if that's what you're thinking with steroids too. But I do think that, let's say you're someone that became a Christian after that. That's a testimony for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that as Christians, we need to stray away from it because it doesn't glorify the Lord. It's something that's purely vanity focused, and it's literally just for us to think that we're better.
Yeah,
and that's dangerous. That's pride.
Aesthetic. Yeah,
and is it James? This verse, I should know it. God gives grace to the humble, or he opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. I think it's James.
That sounds
Please
right.
don't call me on that. It sounds right. I'm sorry. I didn't prepare.
Email us if he's got that wrong.
That's true.
People don't email us, but we beg for emails all the time.
Please email.
Just email. Just do it. It's not that hard.
It's fun.
Anyway.
It's pretty easy. I really do think that it could become a pride thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everybody would experience that.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not your conviction, some people don't experience that kind of conviction. If you really think that somehow that's just your lifestyle and it's nothing about vanity, I guess in that case, maybe, but I think that still is a huge open door for sin in your life.
Yeah. I want to take us back to the first 2 episodes we ever did, right? The myth of neutrality, right? There's nothing in existence that isn't either serving God or serving sin, right? There's no middle ground. Something's either glorifying God or it's not. You're either a slave to sin or you're a slave to Christ, right? Mm-hmm. That's Romans 6. So I think it's thinking of our bodies as temples and then understanding the effects of steroids. I don't think that we can like biblically ration this out to be, okay, this is something that glorifies God.
Yeah.
Right. Because we were talking about the reason why we lift is so that we can live longer, so that we can live healthier lives.
Yeah.
Then when you start messing with hormones in general, it's a bad thing. Right. But then this gets like really out of hand. Like it can easily get really out of hand. Yeah. Taking steroids like this. So let's think of like, I don't know if anybody, if you know Dr. Mike Israetel. He's got a PhD in exercise science, and he's a professor, and he lectures a lot. He's on steroids. He's trying to be a professional. He's trying to be an IFBB pro bodybuilder, and he was talking to Jeff Nippert about the dark side of steroids. Because a lot of what you just see people, like these people that are open about taking steroids, and you see the physique they have, and it's like
it's crazy.
It's wild how big they look, how good they look.
Oh yeah,
And Jeff Nipper's video was really good. I would encourage you to watch it if you ever are considering taking steroids, because it's good to know the negative side of it. Mm-hmm. But anyways, Dr. Mike Israetel said that he is like clinically diagnosed with anxiety because of steroids, and it's only because of steroids. Like he was fine before.
That's crazy.
And other things are like the acne that you get is just like, it can be ridiculous. Like it will scar. Like I've seen pictures of people's like backs and stuff. Yeah. And it like scars you. Like it was permanent, like that damage that it does to your skin. Yeah. And those are just two side effects.
That's just two, like there's roid rage, like the hormonal imbalance, right? That, you've got to be taking all these different, like there's like no smart way to do it. There's so many bad effects.
Yes. And not even to mention that, but like the amount of money you have to pour in, like if you're going to do it right, and you're going to eat, like you can't get rid of these side effects, but just trying to minimize these side effects of steroids, right? Like you got to pour so much money into it. I don't understand how you could think that that's biblical, unless you're like, you're just rolling in it, right? Like that money that you're spending on the steroids could go to feed your family. Exactly. It could go to your church.
To the church.
Yes. It could go to so many different spots that be so much better versus it going to you destroying your body.
Right.
And me and Ben have talked about this, that this is what Satan wants to do. This is what the enemy wants to do, because he hates God. He can't destroy God, but he can try and destroy his image bearers.
Exactly.
That's something that's what this is going on. Like this is what happens is you're destroying your body. This is like something that, this is why we can know that like this whole transgenderism movement, it's all satanic. Yep. Because what are they doing? They're destroying their bodies. They're destroying their ability to bear the image of God. Mm-hmm. Anyways, that's just my thoughts of how it ties into theology and biblical principles.
Glad we're on the same page. It could have been rough. One of us could have agreed that steroids are great, and then it would have been a fun discussion.
That would have been. I was pretty positive that you were on the same side as me.
Glad we're right there.
Yes. So, well, Nate, I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that if you think our podcast episode was good, it's a large part due to James Herrin, who was our editor. He is again, this is Ben's ad, so if I'm butchering this and it's not going to sound good. He is a godly photographer. He is a Christian. He attends faithfully at Sharon Baptist Church here. And he is a photographer. He edits our audio. So if you have any needs for audio or photography, call him up, hit him up, text him at 940-999-7190. He also has a Facebook page. It's like James MV Media, I think. I don't know. Email us if you really need to know, or just text him and call him at 940-999-7190. So James, sorry that ad was not very good. But anyways, yeah, guys, go support him, please. Because
I would support him.
Yes. So Nate, if you need pictures to get done,
I'll reach out.
Call him up, bro.
I would.
Yeah, so the best way to support us is, if you think that we're worthy of it, is to just leave us a 5-star review. It's the easiest way. It takes 5 seconds, right? You just have to listen to one episode, and you just leave us a 5-star review, right? There was somebody the other day, they still haven't fessed up. They left us a 4-star review.
Dude.
We know who you are. We know where you live. No, I'm just kidding. We don't know any of this stuff.
That's kind of brutal.
No, we don't. Yeah, but if you guys think that we're not worthy of a 5-star review, if you think we deserve a 4-star, just email us how we can get better, and then we'll improve, and then you can leave a 5-star review.
It's true.
So boom. But yeah, guys, thank you for listening to the episode. Nate, as we close, do you have anything else before we
Dude, I'm
Sign
just
off.
so thankful to be a part of this. Been wanting to for a long time, ever since you hopped on the podcast and started this. Been following your efforts, starting off with that good old HyperX setup.
Yes.
Now we got sound panels in here. It's pretty cool.
Bro,
Good
it's
old
pretty
neon
baller.
sign. Oops, I hit the mic. Anyway, that was bound to happen at some point. Talk with my hands.
Mm-hmm.
Nice little neon sign. I wish y'all could all see that. It's really beautiful in here.
Hey, when we get, if you want to donate money to us, me and Ben always say this. I'm glad you said that because I needed to cover this. We hate having to ask for money, but if you would donate money to our podcast, it doesn't go to me or Ben. It goes straight to the podcast and to us improving. And if you want to see us on camera, if you want to see the face reveal, then donate to our podcast, and we can quicker get on YouTube and have video. And we're gonna make it good video content for you guys. So, anyways,
that'd be cool.
Sorry, continue, Nate.
No, and seriously, man, lifting is a good thing. It's good for you. Have the right motives. Pray about it. I don't think we didn't really talk about prayer this episode. Man, it's important to have a good prayer life when you're seeking out just pursuing godliness through weightlifting, right? Man, set those foundations in your life so that you can look back on those foundations when that sin creeps in, because it's only a matter of time. When you're seeking vanity like that, even though you can say it's for yourself, it's so easy to let sin creep in, right? You know, Satan's on that kind of prowl, like it says you're prowling lion or whatever description, right? No, through temptation, right? Like, make sure to be on top of that in your life. Prayer life, quiet time, community, especially just being able to live with other believers.
Yes.
Use it as a platform. Love y'all. It's been awesome being on here, and I hope to be on again.
Yeah, we would love to have you on again. Well, guys, thank you for listening to today's episode, and enjoy coffee and enjoy Christ. See you guys in the next one.